So welcome to tonight's program given by Anne-Marie Bradley, CNS Gerontology, and Mary Coleman, Volunteer Coordinator. Unfortunately, due to technical problems, we joined the program in progress.
I had to fit in care of my mother between work, the needs of my two teenagers and husband, with doctor's appointments, caring for two houses, and going to school myself one night a week. All this while trying to help my family, my mother, and myself adapt to each new stage of the disease. Thank goodness, the Little Sisters of the Poor at the time, teaching staff how to care for nursing home residents. The sisters showed me every day that only person-to-person love, comfort, and humor works in caring for all of us. This is what we do as care partners on our care teams. With Mary's help and the help of the team members, we get to know our care partners and their families and try to meet them where they are. I have had the privilege of walking this journey with 3 completely different families in my 5 years in the program. I have been visiting my present care partner who lives alone for 4 years. It is so rewarding to get to know each care partner for who they are now. They might have a memory problem and other disabilities, but they also have 80 years of experience to call upon. It is such a joy to find out what makes them light up when you hit their good memories. That smile is such a reward, and the smile on their family member's face when they see it or hear about our adventures is a huge bonus. We connect in a different way with each care partner, and each member of our care team does it differently. There are usually treats involved. Mary, I'll tell you a little more about her background. Mary Coleman has been an Alzheimer's respite volunteer since 2021 and currently serves as the volunteer coordinator for Eddie Alzheimer Services, an organization dedicated to supporting caregivers throughout their caregiving journey. Since 2022, she has been responsible for recruiting, training, and managing 20 care teams with 125 volunteers across the whole capital region, each providing support to families caring for a loved one at home with Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. Mary also serves on a committee developing memory mixers for caregivers and their loved ones to enjoy community events together along with other families. Mary is a communicant of Our Lady of Assumption in Latham, New York, where she continues to serve as a volunteer with that parish team. Mary is going to show you what Eddie Alzheimer Services does as our partner.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Welcome to our overview tonight of Eddie Alzheimer Services. I don't know if has anybody here heard of us before? Yes? Okay, so we have been in existence since about 2002 in, a very small form. It started as like a, 1 or 2 social workers. The volunteer care teams were working to give respite to families, but that was basically, there was no real fundraising going on behind it. We just kind of were like scraping together. So through the years, it's developed, and we're currently now funded by the Health Department of New York State. So they actually have, can you go to the next slide, John? So they actually provide services throughout New York State. So if you don't live in the capital region, there's still somewhere to get services throughout the state. You can go ahead and do the next slide. And what we're here to do is really to help the caregiver along that journey, because caregiving is really I need to grab my glasses, sorry. Thank you. Caregiving is really a hard journey to go through, especially with somebody with dementia. And you're going to hear me talk about dementia, Alzheimer's, they're not really interchangeable in that when you say dementia, there's really, you're like giving it a label, like cancer. There's, when you get diagnosed with cancer, you want to know what kind of cancer you have. So that's when we say dementia, we want to know, well, what kind of dementia do we have? And what's unique about this disease is that you're never going to see two people with the exact same symptoms, presentation, behaviors. Everybody has a unique situation. It's almost like a snowflake. So this person has dementia. You cannot assume that it's going to be like this person over here. Can you go to the next slide, John? So currently, we have over 11 million Americans who are providing that unpaid care for people living with dementia at home. And what does that translate into? 18 billion hours of service to those families that they're caring for. And if you had to put a value on that, it would be $340 billion. So we're talking about a lot of caregivers who are putting in the time and effort with their family members on this difficult journey. So we really need to have supports in place to, support those caregivers. We don't want them to burn out. And that's really New York's goal with this program. You can go to the next slide, John. Dementia caregiving is physically, emotionally, and mentally exhausting. Providing care to someone with Alzheimer's or other related dementias requires a substantial amount of work and effort. As the disease progresses, their reality becomes more distorted and cognitive function decreases. With dementia, there's no such thing as improvement at this point. It's a progressive disease that continues to, go along its path. In the later stages, a person with Alzheimer's or dementia will require assistance with personal care. So we're going from somebody who might need assistance with getting dressed, having their, meals, doing their finances, to doing, more personal care things like showering, and toileting, and those kind of things. Throughout, and then at some point, the situation becomes such that they can't be left alone, and that is really harder on the caregiver once that happens, because they're basically needing to stay with that person all the time, unless they have somebody that can come in and give them a break. Throughout the stages of the disease, caregivers experience variations of ambiguous loss. This person is not the same person that they, made a bond with, that they've lived with, that they've loved through the years. That's a grieving process for that person. Their life has changed dramatically based on what's going on with the person. Maybe this is the person that they confided in, that they shared everything with, and now they don't have that anymore. So they're grieving while that person is still present in the home. We also refer to this as the longest goodbye, because it could go from anywhere between 6 months to 20 years. It's very, hard to pinpoint how long the journey takes. While caring for someone with Alzheimer's or other related dementias can be physically demanding, there is a large part that is emotionally and mentally exhausting as well. You're dealing with somebody who might be asking the same questions over and over again, telling the same stories over and over again, not remembering things that you've told them. We have a doctor's appointment, on Tuesday at 4 p.m. They have no recollection of that when it comes time to go to the doctor's appointment. You cannot rationalize or reason with someone who has Alzheimer's or dementia. Their brain does not allow for this any longer. We cannot expect a person with dementia to change. We can only monitor and change our own behavior based on what they're doing, because we're the only one that can make a change at this point. Okay, next slide. So let's go back to the New York State, what they're doing for this program. So the Alzheimer Caregiver Support Initiative is a grant-funded program to alleviate that financial burden, emotional burden, and somewhat the physical burden. They allow us to, help families in this capital region and a little bit beyond in some of the counties. And that kind of eases up their effort that they need to put in. The next slide. So we're going to talk today about some of the programs that we offer. Through EDDI, we have 12 employees. The majority of those people are social workers with a master's degree. And what they do, they've been trained and have worked for many years with families dealing with people, with this disease. And they have, worked on many resources. I brought several with me tonight for you guys to look at. And that kind of is just the tip of the iceberg. It might be overwhelming if you're, a new caregiver or you're not sure where to start. That's why we like to do a personal appointment with the social worker in the beginning. So what that entails is you get to set up a meeting with that social worker, and we call them care navigators. And you're going to kind of go through, this is where your journey is. And the great thing about this is, you may think something's wrong. Your loved one may not think there's anything wrong. They just think, they don't remember that they're repeating things or forgetting things. You don't need a diagnosis to utilize our services. So that's an important part of that. We do kind of, recommend you seek medical attention and maybe see a neurologist so that you have the best care possible. So that first process is the caregiver assessment. Then from there, we have education programs that you can sign up for. They're a multi-part, like 6-part series. We do them online. And then from there, there might be some support groups that you could get involved with. There is also, we offer respite grants. So let's say you come to us and you have no support whatsoever. Maybe your caregivers are worried about both parents and they're living at home here. The caregivers are maybe in California. We can work with you over Zoom to help you get some supports in place for that. We can give you a small grant that kind of enables that person to hire somebody to come in and maybe do some companion care. Maybe personal care is something that you're looking for. Those are things that we can help with. And then I'm going to get into some more of those in the next slides. You want to go to the next slide, John? So let's talk about support groups. Support groups are pretty important. Not everybody likes a support group. Not everybody's comfortable sharing their personal details about what's happening. But we find that, by sharing what is going on with you, you're helping other people with that same issue. It kind of lightens the load a little bit. We have general support groups and ambiguous loss support group. It's, dealing with that grief that you're feeling now before, while that person is still living with you. We have men's groups who have kind of unique things that they're dealing with. Let's say it's a traditional household. Maybe the woman did the cooking and took care of all the household finances or different things like that. And now the husband is taking care of everything and they're kind of lost. So we have a couple of really great social workers who moderate that support group, and the men work together and come up with, solutions to some different things. We also have an FTD support group. Frontal temporal dementia is a unique dementia. This is the one that Bruce Willis has. I don't know if anybody saw, there was a 2020, I believe, recently with, them talking to his wife. And it's just a very unique dementia. And the family dynamic undergoes dramatic stress for the caregiver. They get aphasia, which is like when you can't name objects anymore, they may, have hallucinations and see things that you don't see, think things are happening that you don't see happening, different things. And we also have a teen and young adult support group as well. For somebody maybe has lost their grandparent, was very supportive in their life, and now they're changing and they don't know how to cope with that. So we do offer that support group as well. Change slides. The next level of support we have is caregiver wellness. We do a lot of things because caregivers are not just caregivers, they're people too. They have interests and need social engagement outside of the disease in their caregiving role. We do like to offer many opportunities for caregivers to socialize and get together and do things that they may have used to do. Having coffee chats at Panera, we move it around to different counties so that it makes it convenient for different people. We do have a walking club that meets every month, and they meet at the crossings in Colony. And it gets them out, gets them a little exercise, and during that, they get to talk to each other. We have a book club that meets on Zoom every other month. Our next one is reading the Thursday Murder Club, so they kind of steer away from titles that have much to do with dementia. They want to do some lighthearted, different things. And some of our staff sits in on those book club discussions as well. The next slide. What are some more caregiver supports? As Anne-Marie alluded to, we do something called memory mixers, and these are happening pretty much every other month. We do various activities, whether they're in person or virtual. A big component of them is having some kind of music, because music is a meaningful activity for people with dementia. It really engages the right side of the brain, which is the last part of the brain to really deteriorate from this disease. So they have a lot of capabilities. I used to have a guy that I was a volunteer for, and he couldn't have a conversation, but I would take him out on car rides, and he would sing along to the music from the 70s. And we had a lot of fun doing that. It gave him a sense of feeling a sense of purpose. We also have a cookie decorating at Christmas time. At that same time, we have somebody singing Christmas carols. At Valentine's Day, we do a bingo, which is online, and we send out care packets to the families before we get together online that afternoon. We send them snacks and drinks and and afterwards we send them little prizes. So it really is a fun thing for them. And we, engage with each other on Zoom for that. And, some other things we've done this past May, we did a sock hop. We decorated for like a 50s kind of sock hop, and we got a DJ there. And I wish I could show you pictures. We don't like to take pictures of people. It's really a special time, and we like to just keep it, in the moment. But they were all out on the dance floor, some in wheelchairs, some with walkers, and just really dancing up a storm. It was really a great thing, and we got some good food in for them. During these events, we've heard from caregivers that it's really nice to go someplace where you can feel comfortable to let them act how they need to act, like, not feel like they're going to embarrass themselves or embarrass, whatever, because we're all kind of in the same boat, and it's just a fun thing to do. Starting in January, in Cohoes at our offices, we're going to have a thing called memory cafes. And memory cafes are basically sort of like the coffee chats. You bring everybody in, you get maybe an activity going, something simple for the person with dementia. The caregivers might go into another room, and maybe we got somebody talking to them about Medicaid or some of these tougher topics that are really hard to get into. But we want to make sure that we are, taking care of both the caregiver and the person with dementia. Okay. Next slide. And the Alzheimer's Association is a pivotal organization in this, and that we share this grant with them. We work together. They run a lot of support groups. We have a handful of support groups. They probably got a dozen plus support groups, and they've got them all over the community. Saratoga, Averill Park, in various places. You just would go to their website and kind of look those things up to find one near you. They do a lot of education and prevention. There's a lot of things that we can do to limit the possibility of having dementia come into our lives as we age. The way we eat, the way we exercise, the way we sleep. There's a lot of things that we can do preventively for that. They're also a big research component for this disease. We really need that right now as much as ever. And then lastly, they have a 24/7 helpline. And we give that out to everybody that we work with and say, you know what? If you have somebody in the middle of the night, they don't know what to do. You don't know what to do with them. They're acting kind of funny. You don't want to bring them to the emergency room. You can call the helpline, and they can kind of walk you through some ideas, And then the next day, somebody from the local Alzheimer's Association will follow up on that call. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about our care teams. As Anne Marie mentioned, we have 20 teams currently. They cover the main counties, and we have another team in Fulton County. And we currently have 125 volunteers, and we're helping 65 families. On average, we have about 6,000 hours of service amongst our volunteers with the work that they do. Next slide. So these teams of volunteers do not provide medical assistance. They're really just there for friendship and companion care. We can, it's always based on what the comfort level of the volunteer is. We can have them take somebody out, maybe go out to lunch, It really depends on what they're capable of and what you're comfortable with. The team members receive training. It's about a 3-hour training, and we go really in depth about what is Alzheimer's, what is dementia, what are the various kinds of dementia you may see, what are the situations you might run into, and we really do a deep dive into that. We, might do some things like the social visit, the meal preparation. Maybe it's a situation where the person doesn't know how they're going to prepare meals every day. That can get overwhelming for somebody. And when a volunteer shows up with a nice little meal for them, they are very grateful. They can do something like offer a reminder to take medication. We can't, give them medication, but if there's a note that says, oh, Joyce needs to take 1 tablet of such and such, you can remind them to do that. They can run errands for you and just give those brief respite visits. As Anne-Marie has mentioned, she visits somebody who lives by themselves, and we have quite a few people in that same scenario. They're living at home alone, so we're a social support for them. We can help them. Maybe they don't drive anymore. Some do drive. There's a lot of ways we can help them. And, it really helps them to stay at home as long as possible, too. All right, next slide. So there's a lot of benefits to volunteering. It's a very minimal commitment. I ask our volunteers to do just a couple of hours a month. The volunteers really work as a team in most cases. And for instance, I have a team of about 10 people at my parish, and we have about 6 families that we help. So I just work with the team and say, on Tuesday, who's going to do this next Tuesday? So I do it for the month. And so everybody has somebody visiting once a week, sorry. So that's really a benefit to having a team effort. Every 6 weeks, we get together for about an hour, and we just talk about how the visits are going. Do they have questions? Do they have situations coming up that they need to talk about or don't understand? Maybe there's a better way to do something. Maybe they're stuck on, what should I do with this person? We work together to come up with those ideas. In a lot of cases, our volunteers will go in pairs of 2. That way it takes a little bit of pressure off. You always have another volunteer there with you. The scheduling is flexible. And social visits are good for everybody, for the person you're visiting and for you. Because, being social is one of those key things for, keeping dementia at bay, really engaging in social activities. Next slide. What are the caregiver benefits? Well, it gives them time to do something for themselves. We don't like to see people get isolated. And this is a very isolating disease. It's one of those things where they don't feel like anybody understands them. They think they'll just keep it private, keep it to themselves. But really, when we have these kind of interventions with caregivers and with the person receiving the care, our care partners, it's really a great benefit. And, caregivers have a really high incidence of depression. About 60% have said, yes, I'm feeling depressed. My life has changed so much. I don't get to do things that I enjoy. This is very stressful. So anytime we make some kind of intervention with the volunteers or with the respite, it really improves the overall benefit to the caregivers and to the person with they get to meet new people in the community. That gives them a level of support that they didn't have before. Like when I mentioned somebody might have their kids living in California and they're here, that really gives them a little more of a boost to have that kind of support. You have ongoing support from me, and I meet with these teams every few weeks, and then it's free, so that's like a big benefit in itself. A lot of the caregivers can't believe it's free. They're like, how is this possible? How do you find these people to do this for free? And, the majority of our volunteers come from churches like St. Edward's. We have 20 teams and 19 of them are rooted in a church. So we have people who want to do service, who really care about people and want to really ease the burden for them. Now I'm going to tell you, you can go to the next slide, which is my last slide. I'm going to tell you about some of our resources that we have. You can find them on the back table. We have the Caregiver Pit Stop, which is really a great resource for somebody who's really got a lot of different questions about dementia. What are the different kinds of dementia? What are the symptoms? What happens if you needs help in getting them into the shower? It's not a secret that as people get older and have, dementia happening, they don't want to take a shower anymore. They don't remember that they didn't take a shower. They don't want to do those kind of things. And we have tips to help you get through those. There's a bigger pamphlet, and I only brought a few of these with me, but it's really a thick resource guide for caring with somebody with Alzheimer's. And it's from the National Institute on Aging. And it goes it does a deep dive into all sorts of things. What about a healthcare proxy? What about lawyers? What about, everything? It's all in here. And then Everything in One Place is a really popular handout that we have. And that's just keeping all the information in one place. All your personal information, all your insurance, financial, everything is here. Anything that you would need to know, off the top of your head for any of appointments that you have is in here. Coming up, we do have a memory mixer coming up in October, on October 29th at the Clifton Park Library. We're going to have a Broadway singer. Her name is Natalie Toro, and she is wonderful. And she's gonna, sing some Broadway music. We're gonna get some nice treats for the families, some cider donuts and coffee and tea and all that good stuff. So that's coming up on October 29th at 1 o'clock. There's some other handouts. There's a handout about, when you're talking to your loved one about their driving, that can get really dicey. We have some information about that there. And there's also, we can guide you through those processes. And, we have a lot of resources. That's what I guess the bottom line is, we have a lot of resources. I just skimmed the surface of them tonight, which is why going through them with one of the social workers is a great idea if you have somebody that you're caregiving for. If you're not caregiving for somebody and you think you could be helpful as a volunteer, you can see me about that. I guess we're going to pass it over for questions now.
And we have the sign-up list if anyone wants to.
If you want one of our people to give you a call, you can sign up on the list too. I think, is that it right there?
It's on the table.
It's at the back table, okay.
So are there any questions? Oh, just a second, Sorry. Here we are.
Okay, I was just asking about the language, if you have a language service,
I'm sorry, what was that?
language services for your, I guess, the caregivers support. Is it?
Like multi.
For people that don't speak English.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. I would have to check into that. We do have, we're part of St. Peter's, so St. Peter's has a lot of resources for those kind of things, and I could check to see if we have that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have hearing aids, and they don't always pick up when I need them to.
Oh, another question? Is there another question?
Yes.
Just a second.
Sorry. This is regarding the volunteer care team.
Yep.
As I saw it on your, was it slide?
Yep.
They would come for like doing meal preps and everything and help, like you mentioned something about driving the
Yeah.
person
So
with
we have-
dementia to places too.
Yeah.
Like, does it include doctor's appointments sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah. So we do have some volunteers who do that, bring their person to doctor's appointments, take them to the grocery store, different things like that.
Because they do have, and then if our schedule doesn't allow
Yes.
us taking that much time off, so
Right.
I just want to know. I would.
Yeah.
And
we usually, for an average visit, is usually a couple hours a week. But in the cases of doctor's appointments, they may run a little longer. It's just a matter of connecting with the volunteer, giving them enough notice, and seeing if we can find somebody.
how do we connect with a volunteer? Do we have to speak,
You
get
have to
social
go through
worker?
an assessment with one of our care navigators, and then we can get you set up.
Okay.
We do have a wait list, unfortunately, for volunteers because it's very popular to have volunteers and, everybody wants one. And we just don't have enough right now, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No. I just wanted to say, a few years ago, I was actually a volunteer caregiver. I stayed at the house with the person with dementia. His wife went outside and gardened for a couple hours, and it just gave her a respite to do that.
Absolutely.
I didn't take him anywhere. He was basically nonverbal. A lot of times he just slept in the chair.
Yeah.
We had the TV going, but he had health issues. We had to watch his diet. So I had to watch that he didn't get up and raid the fridge.
Yeah.
If he wanted to do that, I would
That's a
call
big one,
her
frontal
if I
temporal.
had any issues.
Yep.
If he wanted to do any of that. So I did have protocol to make sure, for that. But for the most part, I would sit there and try and engage him in conversation. He
Yep.
was basically nonverbal, but she enjoyed being out in her garden for a little while and not have to worry about him going out the door and looking for her and things, and could enjoy being outside for a couple hours.
Right.
He unfortunately passed away. I wasn't a volunteer for too long, and then I ended up having surgery and didn't really get back into it. But any little bit helps.
Yes.
She had family around to support her also, going to the market and things, so I didn't, get into doing any of that, but,
Yeah.
you know,
That's a great thing.
like you said, any little thing helps.
Yes.
My mom had dementia, Alzheimer's. I don't know if she ever really got diagnosed, but she had memory issues for about 16 years.
Wow.
We lost her a lot longer, a lot before we lost her permanently to God. So, and I remember people from St. Edward's, from the Alzheimer's care team, going to visit my parents once in a while. So it does help.
Yeah, it really does.
It's
I mean,
it's a tough road.
it is. Anything you can do to lighten it is greatly appreciated.
Yes. Anybody else?
Yeah, and the majority of, I would say, the majority of the people that we visit don't go out. They're just staying at home and making conversation. And it's more about the caregiver getting an opportunity to do something that they love to do. Thank you.
Well, we thank you so much for coming and for being online.
Thank you.
I have one announcement from Becky Crowley, head of the parish wellness team. She's actually caregiving these 2 weeks, so couldn't be here. She's with her mom in Florida. People have asked us since we started talking about the Alzheimer care team, if people that are other kinds of caregivers. And so Becky put out a thing in the bulletin asking if there was a need for it. And so we are going to try to start a caregiver support group for all kinds of caregivers. And this is what she said. We understand that there are caregivers taking care of loved ones who may have other medical conditions and other than dementia, and we want to help you gain the support you need. If you are interested in this upcoming caregiver support group, you can provide your contact information so that we can reach out to you as this group is established. Also, please watch the announcements in the church bulletin and social media in the coming weeks. And so there's a sign-up sheet, and you can sign the sheet. If you're at home, you can call the parish office and ask for Becky. So we're going to do that. So we would certainly love to have anyone that would like to be a volunteer. It is as rewarding to the volunteer as it is for the person, the care partner. I brought another volunteer to the lady I take care of, that I'm my care partner, and she said, well, who is she? And I said, well, she's a volunteer like I am, and from the church. And she said, oh, I thought you were my friend. And I said, I am your friend, and I became your friend because I came as a volunteer from the church, and this woman will be too. And so it is just a wonderful thing to be able to help these families, and having been that family, it is just a relief. And some of the people that I've care partners, they were able to go to the doctor themselves, especially a husband that was afraid to leave his wife. Once the care partner begins to trust you, then you can do anything. You know, when you always look for what makes them happy and what makes them sad, and what do you connect with them. As the little sisters used to say, you need to love them, and they love you, and you become a part of the family. And I have become a part of 3 of the families that I still talk to. And it is a wonderful experience, because to see the courage of the person that has dementia trying to figure out how to live with this brain change, it's amazing. And to see the courage of their caregivers. And just the relief for them to trust you to be able to feel free to go and do what they have to do. Oops. So thank you so much. And if you want to be a volunteer, come and talk to us. If you want to be on the other caregiver support team, call us or sign the sign-up sheet. And we also have and you can call the Alzheimer, Eddie Alzheimer Services as Mary said.
My cards are right on the back table, too.
And there are other resources. The posters are showing you what kind of resources you can get from the different organizations. And the library also has a folder, a little brochure of all the things related to dementia care or anything to do with dementia, which I was surprised to see. So thank you so much, and thank you, John, and the KFC.